Hello and welcome into Betting Life's pregame college football betting show. I am your host, Thor Nystrom, joined as always by NBC Sports' Eric Froton and the coach, Gene Clemons. Over the next 90 minutes, we're going to be giving out our best bets of today and a ludicrous amount of player props. I couldn't believe the amount of player props found this week for a conference title weekend. We had our 3 games last night. We have 6 today. We are going to dive super duper deep into them. Please ask us questions in the comments. We're going to hit these games, the sides, and the player props. Like I said, any player props that we don't ask, certainly feel free to ask us about any of those in the chat. If you want to ask about any projected first-round college football playoff matchups, could certainly do that as well. You want to ask Gene about some of the FCS games, ask those questions in the YouTube chat beneath us. If you wouldn't mind hitting that like down there too, we'd appreciate that. If you're watching us on Twitter, wouldn't mind sharing that link. We'd appreciate that as well. Help us get the word out there. Gentlemen, without further ado, we got 6 games to get into, and I know that we are going to be drilling deep on these. So let's dive right into it, starting with the MAC Championship today in Detroit, Michigan, Ohio, and Miami of Ohio. We have a spread on this game of Miami of Ohio -3. A couple injury notes before I kick it to Eugene. On the receiving side for both teams, Coleman Owen came back last week for Ohio. 5 catches, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns against Ball State. He's a full go. Cade McDonald, likewise on the other side for Miami of Ohio. He returned from injury last week against Bowling Green. 9 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown. He's a full go as well. Looks like both these teams are fairly healthy. Gene, who do you like in this MAC title game today in Detroit, Michigan?
Yeah, and welcome to everybody, and shout out to the MAC for continuing to not figure out how to put themselves in positions to be the only thing seen. I would not put this game.
This game should have been on Wednesday and Thursday.
Absolutely,
or
absolutely.
Thursday. Yeah.
Never put it like just lean all the way into MACtion.
Yes.
And have that just be its own standalone football thing. Like, don't compete with anyone else. Anyway, saying that, I obviously this is a coin flip game, right? Like, it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. But if you're giving me one side to go, I'm probably leaning towards Ohio here. I just think on throughout the season, they've been more complete at the times when I want to see teams playing well. And not for nothing, because it's Ohio, like a lot of this home field doesn't really like matter as much. You know, like Ohio's going to travel. Miami of Ohio is going to travel for games like this. Like, you're going to have alumni from each one of these universities all over the state. So I don't think a home field advantage is really going to matter as much. So when I see that line be below 3, to me, that tells me they think that the road team has a really legitimate shot of winning this game. And I do too. I'm probably going to lean towards Ohio on this one.
Froton, let's dive into the player props. We both have a cornucopia today of the player props. This is it's an interesting handicap here. You have 2 teams that play good defense. The Fighting Chuck Martins. I've always thought of Miami of Ohio as the Iowa of the G5. You know, they sort of play the same way with the defense and the special teams and let the play clock run. And then on the other side with Ohio, and we knew Miami of Ohio was going to be good. They returned so many guys, and of course the coaching staff from last year's really good team. Ohio, that Tim Elbin guy is really good. Like, coming into this season, you're looking at this roster, you're like, how are they going to make anything out of this? And they appear to have replaced Frank Solich with a coach who is close to his level in Tim Elbin. Ohio runs the ball a lot. Parker Navarro in the first game between these 2 teams, where Miami of Ohio won by 10, I believe he got benched in that game. He had 2 different interceptions. Froton, when you're handicapping this game from the prop angle, what did you end up unearthing this week?
Yeah, and there's, as you mentioned, with Miami and with Ohio, a couple of really good coaches with Chuck Martin and Tim Albin. Albin was the longtime OC for our friend there, as mentioned, Frank Solich, the legendary Frank Solich.
Shout out to Frank Solich.
And, you know, pass the baton right to him. So there's a nice, smooth transition. Since we're on the subject of Ohio, do you know who Frank Solich's longtime defensive coordinator was for over 20 years?
No.
It's a very famous player's right now's father.
Very famous player's father.
Yeah.
That's pretty vague.
Burrow's dad is the defensive coordinator for 20-plus years for Frank Solich at Ohio.
Wait, who was? Say again.
Joe Burrow's dad. Joe Burrow's
dad
Wow.
was? Wow.
Yeah, boys. That's how
I didn't realize that.
No, he's no pretty boy. He's a DC's kid. So that's why, give Burrow the credit for that, going over to the pretty boy side of the ball. And he is got to get great hair, too. That being said, on to the matter of the day. Miami, Ohio against Ohio. Last time these two met, 30-20, Miami, Ohio actually beat Ohio. And that's interesting because Ohio's been rolling over the second half of their schedule. Blaine Gabbert, is it Brett or Blaine? I forget which one is on Miami, Ohio. Brett?
Yeah.
Brett the Hitman Gabbert. Yeah,
That's
he's out there. He's been pretty damn consistent this year. A couple of him and Navarro both been solid. But what I'm looking at isn't so much the QBs as I'm more interested in the wide receivers here. And I like two of them. And both of them, I can't even believe it. First game out of the gate, I got a pair of ladders for you.
Yeah,
I know. And we got hot last night.
We're climbing together on one of them.
Hot with the ladders.
Yeah.
With your boy Yeezy. God, I know you got a piece of Udo last night.
Sure
you went
did.
over 100. That was a
Sure
nice
did.
9-1 hit for our boy
Sure did.
Yeezy. But we're going over to Miami Hill. We'll start with Cade McDonald. Was injured for a few games there. Mr. McDonald didn't have the opportunity to play. November 5th, actually, he got one target against Ball State, and we didn't see him again for the entire month of November until last week against Bowling Green. When he was healthy, Cade McDonald was the number one option of this passing attack. And what's also important is they aren't like, the great RIP Mike Leach running out essentially hockey lines of wide receivers. They throw out three guys. They throw out Reginald Virgil. They throw out
Tracy.
They throw out Tracy, I love you. They throw out, $1 Million Man's Lackey Virgil.
It's Javon Dick Tracy.
Javon Dick Tracy. Tracy, I love you is my favorite one.
Okay.
Yeah. But then we have Cade Old McDonald here. And dude, when he's healthy, he's the guy that they focus on.
Yes.
Last game, 9 catches on 11 targets, 82 yards, and a touchdown. Of the 3 wide receivers, he is the lowest listed out of all 3 of them right now. He's at 43.5 yards.
Just nuts.
It's nuts. And Virgil's up there at 56.5. It's 13.5 more yards. I don't understand. Okay. 43.5 for McDonald. That's a straight go. He's the clear number one. Came back, looked great last week. Plus, not only do we get that, that's such a good line.
For a ton, let me hop in there. Just a couple of contextual things about the McDonald one. Totally agree on that one. McDonald. So here's the interesting that you mentioned the wide receiver one thing, which the Bucks, who always struggle with context in the college football player prop market, have totally missed it here. McDonald has played in roughly 8.5 games. You mentioned the injuries, the game that he got knocked out, the partial games, and then the fully missed games. You add it all together, he has played in roughly 8.5 games. The other 2 starting receivers for Miami that you just mentioned have played in all 12. And despite that, McDonald has nearly as many total targets on the season as the other 2. Like Virgil and Tracy are in the low to mid 70s, both of them. And then McDonald's in the very high 60s, despite, having played the 3.5 less games or whatever. These books, they're not like experts on the college football field, every single roster going through every week. They're the baseline for a lot of these numbers that they're using. It's computer algorithms. And a guy like McDonald, who has played in multiple partial games, including recently because he got knocked out due to injury, and then having missed the multiple games in the interim of that, that's what their equations, their algorithms are factoring. Oh, in this game 3 weeks ago, he only had 2 catches for 12 yards, and they're not taking into account, because he was knocked out in the late first quarter in that one. And if you just look at the full games and you extrapolate that out, McDonald should not be the lowest guy here. He should easily be the highest. When they're all 3 on the field, he gets the most targets. I'm sorry, Froton, go ahead.
No, don't be sorry. I mean, nothing but good things here and overs. But with McDonald, we've even seen him steam up. I'm looking at him right now. Like he's even getting into the high.
I have a feeling he's about to steam a little bit more.
I have a feeling he's going to steam a little more.
Our friends out there. Yeah.
I pumped his 80+ ladder alt line. It was
Climb that thing to heaven for a ton.
To heaven.
Yeah.
To profit. And
Yes.
it was plus 425 earlier in the week where I hopped on it. We're looking at plus 280 at that 80+ now. At 90+, best lines we're looking at is around that 4-1. I think that's, obviously I would have liked to have gotten the 4-1 at the 80+, but still 80+, 90. You went for 84 last game. I think you're probably looking at a potential at the C note level here. I think you could possibly hit that at 100 yards. That would be plus 550. So I think you're looking 80, 90 range. If you want to go up to 100+, I think those are all going to be good. But man, if you can, just his line itself in the 40s is way too low. Hard buy on me. And then on the other side, let's not forget Coleman Owen on Ohio.
Another injury guy.
Another injury. It's the same thing.
It's mispriced. Yeah. I mean,
I don't understand what's going on. He's 46.
Yeah.
All right, on that. And then you look at Mr. Coleman Owens' ladder, and you were getting earlier in the week, you were at plus 310 at 80 yards. It's currently at plus 285. Hasn't changed that much. That's a pretty good deal. And then if you're looking at 90+, plus 400, you could even go all the way up. If you're looking at 100+, that's plus 550 on your money. I like both of those receivers who's proven to be the number one guys in each of their respective rooms and are doing it week after week. Coleman's gone over 100, I think 3 of the last 5. How can you not take some speculative stabs on conference championship week with things that are happening more often than not? So those are 2 excellent ladder options for you.
Yeah, I just a quick aside. Down the hill from my house, there's a Savers. It's for people that don't know what Savers is, it's one of those places you go and like donate your old stuff, and then they put like the prices on it, and then when people buy it, the money then goes to charity. And I walk around, I bought a new house like 3 years ago, so it was super convenient not only to have a place to dump the stuff I didn't want, like as I was bringing it in, like I don't need this thing anymore, but also to fill my house up with stuff. The Savers. Anyhow, I walked through this thing because I ended up going to this place like once a week for like a year. And I was so fascinated with the prices that would be on specific things. There would be no rhyme or reason to it, right? Like one day you'd see one thing and it would be like $199. It might be $699 another day. And you come to realize that this Savers that we have here down the hill from my place, there's not one person, there's not one omniscient being who is putting these price tags on each of the used goods. No, it is a bunch of random assortment of people that don't seem to have a great context for the value of the goods that they are now presenting to the customer who is coming in. It is the same thing with sports books and the college football player prop market. They don't have any feel for the context or the value of some of these prices that they should be putting out. And the injury thing in particular is where you see it a lot. This is why some people hate betting the props in bowl season or betting bowl season in general because of all the opt-outs. I love it. I haven't crushed bowl season like I have the last couple of years since the opt-outs became ubiquitous. And the reason is, again, I do better with context of the specific situation with the teams than the sports books do. And that opens up possibilities like this. Love those angles, Froton, on those 2 injured receivers, because you're getting depressed price points of guys that we already saw last week were 100% full go, will be 100% full go here, and are the wide receiver ones on their team. And as far as me, I would lean Miami of Ohio here. As far as the handicap goes, my line on this game is Miami of Ohio minus 2.2. This is a close one. Gene, you mentioned it in your handicap. This thing is more or less a coin flip. I just lean Miami because I think that the way that the first game went down, that 10-point Miami win, I think that is instructive of the way that this game is going to play out. I think Miami has a slightly different strategy in this one, but I think that they'll still have success in that. In the first game, Miami ran the ball much better than you would have projected against Ohio. Ohio has a really good run defense, and Mosey and company were doing a great job grinding stuff out on the ground. Where you can get Ohio defense that Miami didn't exploit as much in the first game, and I expect them to in this one, is Ohio's defense. They have the pass defense. They have a good pass rush, but if you can beat that pass rush, you can beat their secondary. Gabbert for Miami of Ohio has the 17th quickest average release time in the NCAA. I think that the passing game of Miami, which is a lot of those 3-step foot in the dirt, get the ball out, that it matches up really well with this Ohio pass defense that wants to get pressure on the quarterback, muck things up, and then get you out of your structure in that way. Miami, they're going to keep to their structure because they get the ball out quickly. I think that Miami's passing attack has more success this time around. So, of course, I'm on the McDonald over. I love the McDonald over. Earlier this week, got that one at 43.5, and we are up a little bit.
Yeah. It's up around 50 now.
Yeah, 47.5 on Prize Picks right now.
And we'd still be hopping over that. And the latter plays, of course, with McDonald. The other one I went on, not as confident in it, but, in that I think the McDonald one's a slam dunk. This one's more, you're playing against a fairer number. But I also took the Brett Gabbert over 209.5. I think in this game, again, you modulate the strategy a little bit. And you even more aim in on the specific weakness of Ohio's defense. They were able to beat them in the first game without exploiting that a whole ton. I think they do it more in this game. Lean Miami of Ohio, but we're on the over on Gabbert and McDonald in the prop market. A couple more games, then we'll get into audience questions.
Hey, Thor, real quick,
James.
do you think that the fact that Navarro is like the dude and he was in and Paulus was in that first game is going to have like some bearing on the game? Do you think that that's enough to make up for the deficiencies that you saw in the first game?
Navarro needs to have a really good game here. It certainly can't turn the ball over like he was last time.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was haphazard last game, and I feel like he's playing with a lot more confidence over these last 4 or 5 games for sure.
Yeah. I
think that's going to make a difference. That's why I'm really bullish on his rushing prop today. His and Tyus's Anthony Tyus. Both of them seem to be the established, unquestioned linchpins for that offense now. And I think that's going to make a difference in the game. I also think that that's why both of their props are good, because they're going to play off of each other in the running game. So I would mention Navarro over 69.5, Tyus over 65.5 rushing yards. And then you got to put Gabbert over 1.5 touchdowns. I just think he's going to be able to find an end zone through the air, because he's been able to find an end zone through the air all year.
For sure. Yeah. And again, for the Ohio side, Navarro, he has to avoid those turnovers that we saw in the last game. It's like last night with UNLV and Boise, we were talking before we got on the show of how many opportunities that UNLV had to make that a game. And it was like every single time, whether it was all the dropped interceptions, whether it was the turnovers, whether it was, not punching ball, whatever it was just over and over and over again. UNLV, a team that doesn't play as well from behind. They want to do the run, and then they got you in trouble. Ohio is kind of like that as well. So another big thing here for Ohio, not only avoid those mistakes that could lead to an early deficit, but play well yourself. Ohio, a much, much better team when they are playing from ahead as opposed to behind, because then you have to let Navarro put the ball in the air, and certainly not as good at that as he is deriving value from his legs. Boys, next game here, Big 12 Championship, Arlington, Texas. We got the noon kickoff here, the noon Eastern kickoff, Arizona State and Iowa State. Interestingly here, and I should have done this before I apologize to the audience. I was meaning to look up for this show the record of the West Coast teams when they played the early noon games this season against the spread. Historically, they have not done well. This season, just from my memory, they have not done well. Arizona State is going to try to turn that thing around here in an hour and a half, starting an hour and a half in Arlington, Texas. For Arizona State, isn't this one? This would be 9 a.m. kick local time in the morning. Tough ass there. Arizona State is still favored in the market, I believe, although we have gotten some real Iowa State steam here heading down the stretch. We get closer to kickoff. I want to check that line because okay. It was good. I did. Iowa State has now become the favorite. Arizona State was the favorite all week long. 2.5. There was people in the market that were waiting for the 3, and that never ended up arriving. But we had the 2.5 almost the entire week. It did toggle down to the 2. I think yesterday, and then all of a sudden, as we move into game day now, the limits of the sports books raise. The whales start entering the picture and putting the big bets in on those higher limits. And it appears that Iowa State is the side of the whales today. I'm not going to put myself in that category, but it is my side as well. I really like the Cyclones in this one. I think that they match up well. Gene, let's start with your handicap, though, and parse this one out. How do you see this game?
I mean, this comes down to one thing, right? Can Iowa State stop Cam Scatterboo from running? Like, I just really sometimes when you get into these kind of standalone games, championship games, things like that, trying to find every single angle almost becomes like paralysis by analysis, if that makes sense. Like, you're looking at so many different things that you just like you forget about that one legitimate thing. Can Iowa State stop Cam Scatterboo from running the ball? Right? Like, and if they can, then I don't see the path to victory for Arizona State. I do think Iowa State presents more options for victory than Arizona State does. And that's why I think they have a legitimate shot at winning this. Because the focus will be on stopping Cam Scatterboo. And the interesting thing is that Arizona State knows what Iowa State's game plan defensively is going to be. What's their counter? Right? Like, when we put this all together, it's like, how are they going to counter that? What are they going to do? I have no clue. Like, do you really have any confidence in a through the air shootout with Arizona State? Like, I don't see that as a path to victory for Arizona State to just decide they want to go and throw it all over the place. But we've seen Iowa State get in some situations where they've had to throw it all over the place. So for me, that small bit of information, what does Arizona State do if and when Iowa State is able to shut down the run game? I don't know if they have any answers, and for that reason, I'm going to go Iowa State.
Froton, it's interesting, jumping off what Gene said, that matchup of Iowa State's run defense against Arizona State. And Gene's totally right. I mean, like, and that's where it became problematic for me with Arizona State in this handicap. Is the big story here is Jordan Tyson is out on the Arizona State side. Jordan Tyson, the former Colorado Buffalo, comes over this season. Jordan Tyson has been targeted as many times as the next 3 most targeted pass catchers on the Arizona State roster. Their whole pass, it's Jordan Tyson, right? Like, it's like they give the ball to Scatterboo a billion times, and then otherwise they're giving the ball to Tyson. Tyson is the one impediment that defenses have from stacking the box against Scatterboo. You always had that threat out there. They're not going to have it today. And Arizona State doesn't trust their other receivers. Xavier Gullery's travels and all these other mid guys. They don't trust anyone. Gullery, he gets his 1 or 2 the deep shots per game when the offense is right. This game, he has to go from being the poor man's Elvin Harper on the one side, just the deep dude, to now he has to become Jordan Tyson. He's not Jordan Tyson, or he would have been Jordan Tyson before now. So now you have to mischaracterize him. You're almost assuredly funneling more usage into Scatterboo. Scatterboo is approaching 300 total touches on this season. And in this game, he's going to be a marked man like John Wick walking around when they put out the bounty. The Iowa State defense, everyone, it's all keyed in on Scatterboo. Every single play, whether Levitt's dropping back to pass, certainly if he hands it off to him right away. I love Scatterboo. Scatterboo shucking off the guys, breaking all the tackles. I like him as a receiver. Like, I think he could be like a fun round 6 pick in the NFL. And you have to love what he has done in helping to raise the tide of this offense and then the team overall. But as the marked man in this game, I don't know about that. And like, again, good, now diving more specifically into that prop market. Iowa State, their pass defense has been way better than their run defense. And this is in some ways goes back a couple years with Iowa State playing that 3 high safety look. Iowa State was one of the forerunners in the thing of the alterations of defenses to address the spread offenses, right? Like when we first had Mike Leach, we first had Rich Rodriguez. Shout out Rich Rodriguez. And if the West Virginia AD is watching, please offer Rich Rodriguez.
That man.
It would be so fun. But in order for defenses to address this proliferation of the spread offenses, whether it was a run first spread, whether it was a pass first spread, they had to start doing stuff. It took them a little while. And Iowa State was, again, one of the forebearers in terms of bringing a viable defensive strategy to address that. And it was this three-eye safety look. There are games where you and especially earlier this season, where you were able against thinner boxes on Iowa State to run the ball on them. I did find it interesting that Iowa State's run defense improved down the stretch. And recently, last week, we have an apples to apples comparison for this, where Iowa State was playing Kansas State, do or die game. Kansas State has that really good rushing offense. They have the multiple running backs. They have the athletic dual threat quarterback. That's what you're afraid of when you play Kansas State, is their rushing offense. Iowa State shut it down. And they shut it down by bringing more guys up into the box. And obviously they had their defensive keys and everything like that. But it's not a static thing, that system of we are always going to have the thin box because we got the three guys playing deep. They will bring guys up. They will give you different looks. It's the reason why in the passing game, they can confuse the opposing quarterback because of some of this different stuff with the alignment that those guys don't typically see. It starts to affect the way of their pre-snap progressions because they don't know exactly the look that they're going to get post-snap based on what it is pre-snap. But again, Iowa State has showed those alterations against the run. It showed up last week. Can they do the same against Scatterboot today? Froton, with all this being said, how did you end up coming to see this game, and where did you go in the prop market?
Yeah, and you make really good points about the different competencies of each of these two teams. And when I'm looking at this, we're talking about Arizona State, and defensively, I don't particularly trust their run defense. 78th in yards per successful rush.
And they've
78th in EPA per rush.
Their run defense going the opposite direction of Iowa State's, which improved down the stretch. Arizona State's has been starting to fall into the lake, like just sink like a rock.
Yeah, and it's not like Iowa State, they have this prolific rush offense between Sama or Hansen. Like it's not like they've been dominant in the Breece Hall era, in the way that they ran the ball this year. It's been more relying on Rocco, but when they need to, Rocco Beck, they will break him out and run him, when it's advantageous for him. If they don't need to, they don't. But, last game, we saw him run 8 times against Kansas State for 35 yards. Previous to 7 carries in each of those 2 games. But 8, 28. So if we're looking at the trends for what they're doing with their rushing attack, they've gone over the 7.5 rush attempts that Rocco Beck is currently set at. He's gone over that 4 of the last 6 games. 5 of the last 7. And when they haven't gone over, it's been 7. But against Arizona State, I think you see a similar script as what they did against UCF. Now, you remember against UCF, 38-35 game, they had them on the line. Rushed 20 times for 97 yards, did Rocco. 3 games ago, 7-48, 27, 35. They're being very opportunistic about how they're using him in the run game. He's only listed at 7.5 in terms of rush attempts. I think against a imbalanced defense of Arizona State that actually ranks 5th nationally in defending passing explosiveness, I think they're going to be using the RPO a little bit. I think Rocco Rock is going to be able to diagnose the defense. Maybe we get a couple of those quick drops and then QB keepers. I think that's a real recipe for success. I like Rocco Beck over 7.5 rushing attempts.
Wow. Okay.
I know. I'm going.
Yeah, I like
we're
that.
Get creative here. We're
I like that.
Creative with this sort of stuff. I'm trying to ferret out some value. And then on the other side of that too, Jaden Higgins, wide receiver, Iowa State, he gets pounded with targets.
We'll be seeing him in Mobile for a time.
We will be seeing him in Mobile. And
both of them. Both those receivers. Iowa State has some fun. Iowa State has some awesome receivers.
Yes, we do. Jalen Noel as well. Noel. Blessed is the child
Correct.
But that being said, we have Jaden Higgins. His receptions prop is set at 5.5. All right. I mean, my gosh, I don't know what more you want from me, but yes, against Kansas State last week where they won 29-21, he only caught 3 passes, 53 yards and a touchdown. He got 13 targets though, right? And this is Kansas State's secondary. Besides that, he has cleared 5.5 receptions in 8 straight games.
Yeah.
Talking 14 targets, 13, 16, 13, 7, 12, 11 over that stretch.
And in that game too, Froton, against Kansas State, they were running more at the end because they controlled that game.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It was 29-21, and he still got 13 targets. So, I mean, with him running so hot, he's at 5.5 receptions. I just think it's too low. Give me the over on receptions for Jaden Higgins, 5.5.
Yeah, and you started that out by talking about Arizona State's run defense and sort of set up the way that Iowa State's offense has sort of progressed and looked throughout the fall. The other one that prop that I liked on the Iowa State offensive side, Abu Sama, a guy that we frequently faded during the fall. As you mentioned, Froton, we got into the middle of the season and all of a sudden Chase Hansen, the third Hansen brother, or would he be the fourth, started to play, more snaps. It became more of a split carry, split usage type thing in the backfield for Iowa State. And then that Iowa offense in general was skewing more towards the pass because you had Rocco's Modern Life throwing to the 2 future NFL receivers that, again, Froton and I will be seeing in Mobile, Alabama in a little bit over a month. They both already have their Senior Bowl invites and have accepted them. That was the way that the offense was going at that time. Iowa State, though, quietly, not only down the stretch did their run defense improve, their rushing offense began to improve as well. And Abu Sama got more back into the mix of things and started to do a little bit more damage. But his lines, again, they're set a lot of times by the algorithms at the sports books, at least the baseline that we get based on averages and such like this. And from earlier in the season, some of that stuff is still being factored into Abu Sama's price and ends up depressing it here. I got this one at 34.5, and some of these ones that you hear from Froton and I we got earlier in the week, some of them they have drastically changed by the time we get to Saturday. I think this Sama one is still pretty close to what he was earlier this week. Gene or Froton, any of you guys got the updated Sama line?
I know I've seen it. I think I saw 35 and a half is right around where he's skipping at the moment.
So we're still right around. Yeah, we're still right around there. And
32.5 on Prize Picks right now.
So you can get a better price than I got. I mean, rare occurrence there in the prop market, but certainly I would advocate jumping on that. Sama has carried the ball 12 or more times in 2 of the last 3 games, and he has double-digit carries in 4 of 6. Follow me on this one. First of all, I think the panel here, we like Iowa State in this game. And so the game script, you think about last week against Kansas State, again, Iowa State controlled that game. Because of that, you saw them more rushing at the end of the game. We know that Sama is playing more now than he was, say, 5 weeks ago, when Hansen had started to assume that higher usage. And following that, Sama ended up getting the carries last week. If he gets, and by the way, Abu Sama in all 4 of those games, I mentioned the 4 of 6 where he had the double-digit carries to close the season. All 4 of the ones where he got double-digit carries, he ran for a minimum of 52 yards in all 4 of those games. 52 yards, 20 yards above where his total is set right now. So you have to think about, is Abu Sama going to get to 10 carries in this game? Because if Abu Sama gets to 10 carries against Froton, what was the metric on Arizona State's EPA per run on run defense? 79? 78. It's not a good run defense. And again, it has gotten worse. At the beginning of the season, Arizona State was much stouter against the run. And as we've gone down the stretch, it is sagged. I'd be curious to see the split of that. I would guess it would be closer to 100. You look like over the last month or so with Arizona State. Either way, just do the math in your head. If Abu Sama gets to 10 carries against let's just call it the 85th best run defense, 80th heck, we'll be generous, 75th best run defense in America today in Arizona State. What would you project Abu Sama's yards per carry to be in this game, in this matchup?
4.5, 5.
4.5, 5.
4.5 or 5, right? And nightmare scenario would be what? 3.5?
3.5.
3.5. If he gets to 10 carries and the nightmare scenario, the 35 yards, we have breached this number, right? Like, so the way that I handicapped this game and the way that I saw, I think Sama gets 10 to 14 carries. I don't think this one's going to be close. This is another one. I wouldn't ladder this thing all the way up because, again, some like McDonald, you can climb that ladder higher. Froton and I climbed to heaven last night with Yeezy Udo from Army.
Easy.
This one though, you could do the mini. Maybe don't climb all the way to heaven because Iowa State's not going to turn it like Breece Hall today. Abu Sama, you're going to be Breece Hall because of the receivers and whatnot. But again, the way that this thing goes, I think that Abu Sama's price, it should be more like high 40s, low 50s. And I think he breaches that number. So we're going over on him. That one I really like on Abu Sama. My other prop play in this game is more speculative. So I do want to sort of give that caveat in advance. But I'm going over Froton on your boy Xavier Guillory's travels.
Xavier Guillory, why not? Somebody's going to get the passes. He's going to throw for 200. Levitt, right? I mean, that's exactly
right. Now his number is set at 42.5 here, which again, you look over his work to this point. It seems
it hasn't gone up much. It was listed at 41, or on the drop, and it hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah, and I think, even the market, I think, as a whole, they have problems with the context too, right? And so, like, a lot of times you're looking over just these sea of player props, and you might, like on Underdog or Prize Picks, you can click like the little window, and then it will pull up like, oh, last 5 games, and these were the times he went over the number that we've set it at, and this is his average over the last 5 games. Gullery has only been the once or twice per game deep shot guy for Arizona State the entire season.
Deep shot. He's the deep shot guy. Like he's flying down the sideline. Yeah.
Whereas in this Arizona State offense, that all their passing usage, or the vast majority, has gone to the wide receiver one, Jordan Tyson, not on the field today. Gullery is going to be the wide receiver one. Now, is he going to get is it going to be the exact same thing as Jordan Tyson? Of course not. Because again, if they thought that he was Jordan Tyson or could do Jordan Tyson things, he already would have been doing them, but he doesn't need to. That he is going to get 1 or 2 or 3 deep shots. That's just a part of the normal Arizona State offense. They're not taking that away from him. And then he's going to get some more targets that Jordan Tyson previously would have gotten. Again, like not the whole Jordan Tyson usage package. You would expect, of course, that some of that percentage of those plays are going to go to Cam Scatterbo in particular. Although, again, he is approaching 300 total touches this season. You can't give him the ball every single time in this game. But you're going to see a little bit of Mateer as well, that they're tight end. I didn't like Mateer as much in the prop market because his number also is a bit inflated this week. But Mateer, the thing that he does, it's more the intermediate stuff for the Arizona State passing offense. And Sam Levitt is not as good at that stuff yet. He's not as good with the timing concepts or the anticipatory stuff on schedule right after the snap, that sort 3-step drop stuff we were talking about with Brett Gabbert. I'm not going to claim that he's the best at it either, but at least he does it, right? Like, whereas Levitt, that's not as much his game. Like Levitt's physical tools, he's a guy who's got a big arm and he scrambles around, but the refinement is not there yet for Sam Levitt. He's young, right? Like he spent his first year last year at Michigan State. Now with Arizona State, this is his first year starting. But all that stuff being said, Gullery takes some of Tyson's, even say it's a quarter of what Tyson usually gets, in addition to his 2 or 3 deep shots. I think, you're looking at someone that's going to get over the 42 and a half yardage mark. Again, this is some extrapolation because, all that Tyson usage, how much does Gullery assume? How much is sort of sprinkled around the rest of it? But they don't have any other receivers outside of Xavier Gullery. Now that Tyson's gone. Yeah. Gullery, so already the team's field stretcher mentioned that, leads a team amongst those with more than 6 catches with a 17.1 ADOT this year. Gullery also has an identical 17.1 yards per reception average. That, again, that's what his usage would be. But yeah, I like the over on Gullery. And lastly, I like Iowa State here. I've been talking about this one all week. Got the Iowa State 2.5 earlier this week, got the Iowa State money line. Iowa State has now become the betting favorite. That doesn't surprise me at all. Based on only the Jordan Tyson factor, Iowa State probably should be favored in this game. They were in my system. I have Iowa State, I believe. Yeah, Iowa State -2. And the Jordan Tyson thing, in addition to the time that this game is being played, then you think about the advantage on the Iowa State coaching staff in terms of experience. Matt Campbell has been around the block so many times, the defensive coordinator there. And then Kenny Dillingham on the other side, a very gifted coach, and doff of the cap to him for what he did in 1 year, getting Arizona State turned around to this. If I had to take one coaching staff in this specific game today, I'm on the Iowa State side because of that. What do y'all? Yeah.
And to accentuate what you're saying about Guillory too, and to get into the mindset of how these books kind of set these guys. Guillory last game, he got 3 targets, he caught 2 of them, and he went for 41 yards.
There you go.
It's like they just sit there and go, oh, okay, he had 41 yards this game. We're going to set him at 41 and a half yards.
Because then they can move on to the next one. They got their pizza order coming in. They just called. They have to walk out onto Fremont Street and pick up the pizza. And now they're coming back in. And how many players did you get done while I was gone? Only 2. Come on. We got to hurry this up.
What are we doing? Oh, we just look at last game. He had 41. So
we have 1,000 player props to get through. We got to go quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, no shit. Well, you got no more Jordan Tyson. So where do those targets go? They don't evaporate, right? And they're not going to – only so many targets are going to go to Michael Jackson's favorite tight end, Shamal Mateer.
Yeah.
Another interesting part of this is that, if you don't have a Tyson, which, by the way, how ridiculous is it in Colorado to just have all of this wide receiver talent that you can pitch off a Tyson?
It's crazy.
And not even miss. Like, we don't
even miss him.
He played here? What? Like, it's just crazy. How fantastic would a Big 12 Iowa State Colorado matchup have been? Ooh. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. It would have been great. With the interesting thing with Scadaboo is that they're going to try to get him the ball. And if he doesn't have success early, which is what you almost like hope from a bettor's perspective, if he doesn't have success early, it's not as if I'm worried about Iowa State running away from Arizona State. So I don't think they'll have to get out of what they want to do, which is to give Cam Scadaboo the ball. 5 times this year, he's been over 24 carries. He's always hovering somewhere around 20-something carries when they're in the game. I think he'll be in this game, and if he doesn't have a success early, that doesn't mean they're going to go away from him, because now they don't have somebody else necessarily to like kind of take the weight off. So I think that over prop of Scadaboo over 24 rushing attempts, I think that's something that's really juicy for me, because I think they have to get him the ball. Regardless of whether they're winning or losing, they're going to have to feed him the ball. It's like now or never, right? Like it's now or never. They've been loading him up, waiting for this game, and now this is the game that you can allow him to have that for as long as necessary.
For sure. We're gonna one more game here, and then we're gonna jump into mailbag for the first time. So anyone you have questions out there on today's card or anything else on your mind, you type it into the chat if you're on YouTube, and we'll get to them in a second. But boys, last one we wanted to do before we get there, the SEC title game today. We have a rematch of Texas and Georgia. This one kicking off at 4 p.m. Eastern. Interestingly, Texas, they were -2.5 most of the week. I think live we're at Texas -3, right? Let me pull up 2.5 to 3. Actually, it looks. Let's see. On the FantasyLife bet tracker, I think we got $5 on here. 3 of them we got -2.5 for Texas. 2 of them right now sitting at -3.
Yep.
The interesting thing, of course, about that is we all watched the first incarnation of this game, and it wasn't really a football game. It was one individual unit against another one, and the demolition was so extreme that the rest of the players and the coaches, they didn't really get to take part in the game. And that was Texas's offensive line, which everyone prior to that was saying was the best offensive line in the nation. And they have 2 top 15 overall NFL draft prospects starting at the tackles and, yada, yada, yada. Georgia's defensive front annihilated it in that game. It's so bad. It was one of the worst that I've seen the last couple of years, where the quarterback, who is the Oklahoma State quarterback, where there's the gif and his hand is shaking before the snap. This is from a couple of years ago. I don't know if you guys.
It's not Alan Bowman.
It's not Alan Bowman.
He has ice water running through his veins.
Maybe it was Rangel or Gundy. I forget, but you'll see it later and you'll remember what I was talking about. His hand shaking. That was Quinn Ewers in that game. Like, Quinn Ewers was as spooked as you'll see a college quarterback. So badly spooked that Steve Sarkisian really didn't have a choice but to sit him down for a little bit at the end of the first half, bring in Arch Manning, just try to clear the cobwebs in Quinn Ewers' head, and then you get a little bit more mobility on the field with Arch Manning. In this game, Quinn Ewers is not 100%. And so I find it really interesting how that's going to play out. Texas better have figured out their protection in advance of this. But here's what I found interesting. Georgia did not need to blitz to generate that pressure in that game. I had the numbers. I forget the exact thing, but I was looking over the blitz rate for Georgia in every single game this year. The Texas game was either their lowest or one of their lowest of the entire season. They were beating Texas offensive line like a drum with their normal set pass rush. They were dropping 7, right? And they were still annihilating them. In this game, I think Georgia, you can start to do other stuff. You can start blitzing here a little bit. You can start mixing stuff up because you are already in Quinn Ewers' head. Quinn Ewers has that ankle injury. Again, not 100%. He will play. Played through it last week against Texas A&M. Did not appear to be 100%. But again, he's going to go. Keep an eye on that. Jaden Blue, he is good to go for this game. The one that I found the most interesting or topical of maybe, Kelvin Banks Jr., the left tackle for Texas, the ballyhooed NFL draft prospect, and one of the guys that got beat like a drum in the last game against Georgia. He is officially questionable for this game. He suffered an injury against A&M last week, and Steve Sarkisian, when he was talking to the media this week, was like, yeah, Kelvin's basically in the same position as Quinn. They're not 100%. They're definitely going to play, though. When your blindside protector is not 100%, and then your quarterback, who already does not have mobility, his lack of mobility is going to be even more compromised in this game because of an ankle injury in a matchup where you already saw the opposing team have this ludicrous pressure rate without having to send any additional rushers. I don't know how I couldn't go on Texas in this game. I'll put it that way. But Gene, I'll kick it to you. I'm curious what your handicap is with these things in the air. And on the Georgia side, they have a couple of running back injuries, but more or less decent. The rest of the roster as far as the active status for this game. How do you see this one, Gene?
Yeah, it is a little bit concerning that they've got 3, running backs that are injured or questionable still. We don't know the status of Trevor Etienne, who had a great game versus Texas in the first one. So that's a little concerning.
They say he's questionable officially for this one.
And two other guys, 2 other running backs for him as well. But again,
Branson Robinson likely out again, MCL. I think Kirby Smart said this week that it was like one of those of like, oh, hopefully we get him back some point for the playoff, but obviously isn't going to play in this one. And then was it
Bowens?
Chauncey Bowens?
Yeah. Like I think that's an issue, but a lot less of an issue because they just have a stack of 4- and 5-star running backs that are ready to go. So like, yeah, it's an issue, but is it really? We don't know. What is going to be interesting is that they beat Texas by 15, and Carson Beck tried to give the game away.
Yeah, he sure did.
Like he literally was playing for the other side, and they still beat them by 15. So now
he pulled a Hajj Malik Williams for a half.
He 100% did. Like it was
Hajj,
ugly. Sorry, he's going to catch some strays. He deserves some strays today, right? It was interesting to me. You don't have a fully healthy Quinn Ewers. When Arch Manning came in, he did not look good. Like when Quinn Ewers went out and they brought Arch Manning in, he looked like a guy who was not ready for that level of game, for that big of game. If we're really being honest about Arch Manning, which a lot of people have already made him a number 1 overall pick because his last name's Manning and he has some athleticism. But the truth is that he's had some really lopsided returns, like uneven returns. He's looked good.
He's not
at times.
Not even close.
Yeah, he's looked good
raw.
at times. He's looked poor at times. He has a lot of years left. You know what? He has a family that understands that they don't need to rush him to the NFL. So that's one of the good things. But this is a game that they may need him to be able to step up and be good right now. And I do not see how that happens. To me, this Georgia defense is locked and loaded and ready to go. I don't see how you can see what you saw the first time, know the Texas that you're getting right now, and say, oh, no, this Texas team, which isn't as healthy, it doesn't seem to be as locked in as that Texas team was, is going to be able to beat Georgia in a game where Georgia seems to be locked, loaded, ready to go, with Carson Beck really needing to play a good game down the stretch, because we don't know if he wants to come back for another year.
Yeah. Froton, the props on this game, the Georgia side we mentioned with the state of the running back room, this team is skewed more and more to the pass, sometimes to good effect, sometimes to not so good effect, and sometimes both in the same game. Right, where we get the bad Carson and we get the Snapchat Carson in one half where he's making his YOLO decisions, and he's and then Carson Beck, stay off Snapchat, man. Like
leave it alone.
Yeah, just anyway. And then the other half will get the good Carson Beck, but Georgia's offense certainly has skewed more that way. And then the interesting thing in the prop market about this game from the other side of the ball, when Texas has it, will they be able to keep Georgia out of their backfield whatsoever? How did you see this, and what props you got in this one?
First off, lay off Carson Beck.
I'm sorry.
Okay? No. Lay off Carson Beck.
All right.
The poor man, he's got another year. I think he'll be in college probably next year. I don't think he's coming out. He's got one more year of being a heartthrob.
Yeah.
Okay, give him time. We've all wanted to be matinee idols.
First time that Carson Beck has ever been called a heartthrob,
right?
And the last.
Right.
Let him enjoy it. So that being said,
sure.
I will have more to say about our friend Carson Beck later on in the show, but I have a play for him. But got a couple others. Obviously, plenty of thoughts on this. One, let's go to the running backs as you discussed, Thor. Nate Frazier. This is not smoking Nate Frazier, right? This isn't Joe Frazier's kid. This is Marvis Frazier's kid. There's a little boxing reference for you. You didn't expect a Marvis Frazier reference today. He got knocked the bleep out by Mike Tyson back in the day. Check out the Marvis Frazier Tyson knockout. It's a classic. That being said, Nate Frazier.
Mike Jordan Tyson.
But yeah, Nate Frazier, true freshman running back, top 3 5-star from this class. As we know, Trevor Etienne transferred in, and he is now transferring right back on out. Did not work out so well for Travis's younger brother, and as a result, we got Nate Frazier, who has been handling the bulk of the carries. However, last week we saw Roderick Robinson be integrated, Branson Robinson. We have the brothers Robinson. Both of them are back and appear to be healthy and should be playing for this. Last week, even though that game went to 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech, it was 44-42. Somehow, Nate Frazier only got 11 carries for 50 yards after being, pretty much he's getting high teens for, in the lead up to that 21, 19, 12, 19. He gets 11 against Georgia Tech in a 44-42 game. The reason why is because they're getting more healthy and they don't have to rely on a true freshman who, while talented, is still a little bit over his skis. So you have the options. And with Roderick Robinson, as somebody, I saw him at the Elite 11 a couple of years ago, and what really impressed me was he was incredible in the receiving facet of the game. They were lining him up in the slot. Forget about, over at running back. They line up in the slot, and he was toasting, good corners. So, he's going to really have some utility in the passing game. It's just you're going to see a Frazier getting whittled down in the carries. And with Georgia, they rank 122nd in standard downs run rate, 117th in passing downs run rate. This is quietly one of the more pass-slanted teams in the Power 4. With all those factors, I'm taking the under on Nate Frazier's 61.5 rushing yards. And then moving over to Texas, Isaiah Bond, gold Bond. Well, 39.5 receiving yards he's set at. I got a tingle when I saw that which gold Bond does. Because last game, 2 targets, 1 carry for 3 yards, and he's got a bum wheel. That's what we got going on with Isaiah Bond, is that he's apparently has a lower leg injury, potentially ankle, however that might be. With him banged up against Georgia, they didn't look particularly good last time. They have other options with which to kind of go to. Golden is kind of taken over the wide receiver 1 role there. I'm thinking Isaiah Bond goes under 39.5 receiving yards.
Like it. For me in this one, Quinn Ewers going under the 240.5 passing yards. I don't understand. I was talking about my Savers reference with the price checks in the player prop market. I don't understand the prices they put on Quinn Ewers every week. Why is it 240.5? What evidence do we have to support this? He has not topped this number since November 9th when he was facing an injury-decimated JV unit of a Florida defense. And in the first game against Georgia, despite attempting 43 passes, Quinn Ewers had 211 passing yards. I don't understand that line at all. That is an easy fade. And then the other one for me, I faded Dylan Bell, the wide receiver at Georgia. I got this one at 43.5. It has fallen. Froton, you pull up the current one for me so I can see if that's still playable. But Bell has gone under the 43.5 number in 7 of 11 games this year, has topped it only once since mid-October, which is the more topical point. He was more involved earlier this season. In the first game against Texas, Dylan Bell had 3 catches for 15 yards. And last point, Texas has an awesome pass defense, one of the best ones in the nation. So I'm going to go with that. All right, gentlemen, let's open up or Froton, did you pull that up, Dylan Bell, up for me just to give the people what he is now?
No, Froton.
Is he out?
He popped off real quick.
Oh, my bad. Here, I got it. Dylan Bell now is 30. Oh man, he's really falling. Dylan Bell is 36.5 in the prop market. That one is way closer to the margin. So I might be pulling off that one at that current price.
Carson Beck with an interception today. Are we loading Carson Beck up for an interception?
I mean, we always have to toss that in, right? Like
you gotta toss in Carson Beck for an interception because the YOLO Beck, or the, as you call him, Snapchat Beck. Like he wants to be impressive. He wants to try to do something for the people. So I think he'll definitely throw one to the opposition today.
That's it. Let's open the mailbag. Our friend Mike Huseman has Sunbelt title prop questions. Louisiana tight end Terrence Carter set at 47.5 receiving yards, and Marshall's Christian Fitzgerald has the longest reception of 18.5 yards. Do you guys like the over or under on these? We'll wait for Froton to come back to get his take on these. Although before he gets back, let me tell you exactly what he's going to say when I bring up the Terrence Ferguson Terrence Carter, another tight end. When I bring up that number, he's going to say anytime a receiving total of over 40 is put out for a tight end, that's where I start to get scared. It's going to be like something like that.
He also might say something with Terrence Carter and then throw Clarence Carter in there as well and say that he be stroking. So
or Coach Carter,
Coach Carter, he'll throw some reference in there as well to it. It does, and Louisiana doesn't really care how they get it done. Yeah, like that's one of the things that you always have to look for in some of these matchups is how are they trying to get to the victory. And Louisiana does not care how they get to the victory. They are just trying to win. So that would be interesting for me as far as a prop. On the tight end.
I would lean the under on Carter.
Sure.
I mean, certainly is an elevated number for a tight end. And Carter, you look at the last 5, 6, 7 games. Last one was his worst, 2 for 27 in a big win over UL Monroe. But before that, 5 catches for 63, 5 for 41, 3 for 47, 4 for 46. Then he had his 2 jumbo games in the middle of October, 7 for 149, touchdown against Coastal, 4 for 107, and touchdown against Appy. But for me in this one, Lafayette, they're the 6-point favorite here. You would sort of expect them to the game script to be going in the direction of more in their running game. Second half, of course, they're playing with their backup quarterback in this game as well. For some of those reasons, I think it could be a big ask to get Terrence Carter over that number.
Froton, what What do you think, Froton?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Froton. We have.
I mean, you know how it is with
Hey,
tight end.
Froton, we have a question for you. Terrence Carter, 47.5 yards in the receiving in the prop market today. What do you think about Terrence Carter?
Yeah, it's more so, tight ends in general, when you start setting them close to that 50 yards marker, it gets tough. I mean, you start getting a lot of things have to happen because they're just simply not stretching the field and they're catching the ball downfield in a manner that wide receivers do. So, you look at Carter, obviously 27 yards last game, 63, 41, 47, 46. So he's been kind of hovering around that number. And you're going up against obviously a little bit better competition than you would be where it's a conference championship game. I lean under because anytime I see tight ends going over 40 yards, you need to really be Tyler Warren-esque for me to start looking at overs. That's all. It's just a personal preference.
Would you call him Terrence Coach Carter, Froton, or Terrence? What was yours, Gene?
I was going to go with Terrence and Phillip Carter.
Oh, okay. Wow, you went off the script.
I'm a South Park guy.
The other one, Mike asked us about Christian Fitzgerald. His longest reception number set at 18.5. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
First off, it's Fitzpatrick. Christian Fitzpatrick.
Which Hughesman should know. He's a professor at Marshall.
I was going to say, come on, Hughes. As an Irishman, culturally appropriating our names, I don't appreciate that. That being said, Christian Fitzpatrick, I like where he's going with this. Yeah, I do. I do think that Marshall obviously is going to have to be throwing the ball a little bit. I think Louisiana is going to have the advantage. I like them in the side. So, script-wise, I think that means Marshall is going to be a little bit more aggressive in the air. And then with Fitzpatrick, he is a deep threat type. It's another classic case of the books looking at what happened last game and not applying the totality of the season and taking one game. Last game was JMU. 1 for 13 last week. The ones before that, 51-23, 69-33, 17-20. He had a 4, but then it was 34-15, 25-67. So, yeah, I mean, 9-3. I'm 9-3 to the number.
I'm pessimistic about Marshall's passing game overall in this game, but yeah, they do take the one-on-one shots downtown every now and again to keep you out of the box against that rushing offense. So that's where you get the longer reception. I
like it.
Over
like
on that,
over.
Froton? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in.
Me too. Matt Hudson asks us, can we build a pick parlay before the end of the show? I want to see some interceptions. I think we could do that. Yeah, closer to the end, we'll each toss out our favorite couple, and in addition to our play of the day, we'll come up with one of those. Kieran Shetty asks us, Quinn Ewers 30.5 passing attempts. What do we think about the 30.5? I mentioned Ewers the first game was 42-43, even though he got benched for a little bit there at the end of the second quarter. Although again, Georgia was running away with that thing, so Texas had to throw every down. I don't know, Froton, what do you think of the 30.5?
Well, the only thing that really I look at is, first off, injury. He's got a bum ankle. We know that. That's kind of been the last couple of weeks and what have you. We saw what happened when he didn't perform particularly well earlier in the season against Georgia. They went right to Arch, who, if anything, can give you a change of pace with his legs because he's an excellent runner. And if you look at Arch stand next to Quinn Ewers, Arch looks like he's twice the size of him. I mean, Ewers looks like he's his little brother. Arch is a big kid. So, there's always that factor kind of looming. I lean to the over because of game script and because of the fact that I think they're going to have to push the pedal to the metal. A lot of times you see Texas prefer to run the ball more. We've seen it the last two games with Trey Wisner was, in the 33 carries last game. I think he was like 26, 27 the game before. I mean, if they can run the ball and they don't have to put it in harm's way, I feel like Texas will do that. But I don't know if they'll have the luxury. As you mentioned, 43 pass attempts in split time last game against Georgia. Texas isn't put behind very often. In fact, that's the one time all season they were really behind. Yeah. If it's a scenario where they are chasing, they're going to have to throw more. I lean over the 30.5 pass attempts.
Our friend Mike Hughesman asks us, Mean Gene, we finally have the Dakotas playing off a bye in the FCS playoff. Can South Dakota cover -17 at home against Tarleton State? That spread has moved up the last couple of days. Gene, you want to answer this now or you want to wait till your FCS?
No, that's good. I think that what we've seen out of Tarleton State is a team that is going to eventually be a problem for FCS opponents. You know, they're in a place where they'll be able to recruit well. They seem to have a great staff there. Let's see how long they can keep them. But this is different. South Dakota has really broken through this year and shown that they can compete with the best. Beating North Dakota State. I think they will come out this round and try to lay a statement. I like South Dakota State to cover this. I like them to win going away. There's levels to this, and that entire conference that Tarleton State's in, that the U whatever it is now that they've created, it's just not on the level of some of these other conferences. Definitely not on the level of the Big Sky or of the Missouri Valley Football Conference. And so I think that'll show itself today. South Dakota welcomes Tarleton State in and beats the pants off them and sends them back home, lets them get ready for next year.
Gentlemen, let's jump back into our games. We only got 20 minutes. We always go over on this show, even when we have the less ones to do. So let's go a little bit quicker through these, and then if we have time at the end, of course, Gene's going to give up more FCS plays. We have more player props here, and then at the end of the show our plays of the day. But if we have any extra time outside of that, we'll get back into the mailbag. But let's go to the Sun Belt Championship in Lafayette. Louisiana gets to host this one later today, this afternoon. Louisiana favored in this game over Marshall by 6. This thing was 5.5. We have gotten it up to 6 here. Interesting. That is my exact same line. Very rarely is it like right on the decimal, but all week I've been at Louisiana minus 6.6 flat. I'll start with mine, then I'll kick it to you, Gene. Okay. Last week, Marshall, they were able to beat James Madison that game in overtime. They didn't have their left guard, Bryce Ramsey, Landon Watson, the linebacker, Josh Moulton, a cornerback. And so the status of those guys is something to keep an eye on. Also, Marshall's interior offensive line they're banged up as well. Froton, I'll let you talk about that one when you get into your prop on the Marshall running game. But Marshall is dealing with some injuries here. Where Marshall matches up really well in this game is Louisiana. Their worst thing as a team by far is their run defense. And Marshall, ever since Braylon Braxton has come in, you got Braylon Braxton. He runs around, not a good thrower, but he's a good runner. And then they have the 3 running backs. So it's just like run. That would seem to match up well here, except how is Marshall's interior offensive line going to hold up with those injuries? That's going to be, and then also, can Louisiana pull away, their offense pull away, where Marshall, then they have to throw, you get them out of their comfort zone. But Louisiana has to play with their backup quarterback, like I said in this one. So does that hurt their opportunity to do that? Can Marshall keep this closer? Marshall's played better than I think a lot of us thought. Week after week, they make these close games, they win them. I'm not betting the side in this one because I'm still up in the air with some of that stuff. I think it's tough. The 2 bets that I made on this game, the Braylon Braxton, I went over on his 58.5 rushing yards. I don't like that one quite as much, but the way that I see Marshall, at least initially in this game, in their game script, trying to carve away at that, again, the Achilles heel of the Louisiana team, their run defense. I think Braxton handles a ton of rushing in this game. And then the one I like a whole lot more was, especially the number I got it, was the under on A.J. Turner, the Marshall running back at 52.5 rushing yards. I think that was a mistake line, and it has come down. For a time, would you pull that up for when so we see what the updated one is? But Turner, he's in the 3-headed platoon with Jordan Houston and Ethan Payne. You go back to week 10, Houston has had 25-plus snaps every game. Payne has taken 11-plus snaps in every game. During that stretch, Turner averaged 13.7 snaps a game, right? And so his playing time has come down. They've had more of this 3-headed monster thing. Turner only topped the number that I got that at the 52.5, only topped it one of the last 4 games. And just barely. He had 53 yards against Old Dominion, went over by half a yard. And then the Braylon Braxton factor of him assuming more of the rushing has also hurt Turner. So for that reason, I'm going under on him despite the bad rush defense. Those are my 2 plays for the game. Gene, how do you see this one?
Still getting 51.5 on Turner, by the way.
So
still good. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Fun. Yeah, we're happy to fade that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this one comes down to the team that understands how to play in big games better. And that's obviously Louisiana. They're used to playing in big games. They've got this at home. They don't have to worry about traveling. Marshall's got to come to them. Turnover margin, that leans Louisiana. They have the better offense. They have the better defense by rankings. I think ultimately Louisiana is going to make more plays than Marshall's going to make on a more consistent basis. I think that the margin for error is smaller with Marshall than it is with Louisiana, who doesn't normally beat themselves. Marshall can do some things to get themselves beat. So I think when you're looking at a game that's this close, that is probably going to end up being a touchdown game. I had it at 5.5 earlier this week when I locked it in on the bet tracker. And make sure you go to our bet tracker, especially now starting into bowl season. By the way, you definitely want to check us out. We be making money in the bowl season. Y'all need to come along and hang out with us. But go over there to the bet tracker. Make sure that you check it out on the Betting Life part of the Fantasy Life family and see what we're putting in early so you can catch it early. But I had it at 5.5. 6 doesn't scare me because I think that Louisiana will win by a touchdown. I just think ultimately they will make more plays than Marshall will. They'll limit Marshall's ability to be explosive. They'll make them just try to grind it out with their run game. And although Louisiana's not the greatest against the run, they'll be more bend but don't break. And I don't think Marshall, when they get into a shortened field in the red zone, will be able to find the end zone as much as they would probably like, and Louisiana will just kind of run away with this thing in the end by 7 to 10 points.
Fair enough. Froton, plays for you in this game.
Yeah, and you mentioned Braylon Braxton when it comes to the rushing attack. And, the interior of their line, from what I understand, their center was pretty banged up, as well as their rotational interior, their top rotational interior lineman who would be replacing him. If either of those guys goes down, I just think the continuity in the run game is going to, severely suffer. I think at the head of that, great call with Turner. Like we said, it's only down to 51.5, pretty much the standard. I also have taken that. I agree. You've got a Jordan Houston involved, split backfield, all those things. I completely concur with that there. However, with Braxton, I watched the last 2 games. I watched James Madison and I watched Coastal Carolina. I actually skipped the Old Dominion game, but I watched Coastal Carolina and James Madison and how they defended Marshall. And with Braxton, he's big, but unlike a guy like Haj Malik, who when he comes in and you watch him running the ball, he's dynamic. I mean, you saw a couple of runs from Haj Malik last night.
We only got 12 minutes for 2 more games for a time. We gotta go quick.
But I'm excited, Thor.
I know you're excited. Yeah, we want to get through the other 2.
All right, fine. When you watch with Haj Malik, you see dynamicism for his size, right?
Yeah.
But when I watch Braxton, he doesn't have the same ability to shake. He's not elusive. He's just kind of your stock and trade big guy, fall forward, see hole, go through hole. And when James Madison was defending him, they were spying him with a linebacker. And then as soon as even when they're going to the play action, they're swarming immediately, and they're daring Marshall to throw over the top of them. Coastal Carolina did it. James Madison did it. And I think it speaks to 2 things. One, to the Fitzpatrick play that Huseman talked about, 18.5 on the longest reception. I think that's pretty logical considering how I think they're going to be flying the ball here. I think they want to shut down that run game and dare them to go over the top with Braxton. And I think that plays to both of those plays. I like the under for Braylon Braxton's rushing. I think we're seeing it around 56 to 59 is the range right now. And I like the over, as Huseman stated, with was it 13.5, 18.5 for Fitzpatrick's over longest receiving.
Yeah, and just quickly to the interior offensive line for Marshall. So it's Logan Osborne is the center who is compromised. And then Bryce Ramsey, the left guard. They have a backup left guard who his PFF grade, this Eric Meeks kid, has been pretty close to Ramsey. But if both those guys end up missing, Ramsey and Osborne, the backup center that would have to be called there, the guy who's left there on the backups, has not been good in limited action. I don't even want to mention the kid's name. Maybe they're watching. He's been terrible. So they need at least one of those 2 guys to play. Marshall does it. They're going to have some issues on the interior. Boys, our next one here, the Big Ten Championship game. Is it this evening? Are we moving into the? I think this is
this evening. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
we
got
a
8 p.m. kick in
8 p.m.
Lucas Oil Stadium. We'll be there in March, won't we, Thor?
We will. We'll be at St. Elmo's. We'll be getting some of those shrimp cocktails.
Wanna be a man in motion.
Clear out the sinuses.
Fire, baby.
And we are running low on time, but I have to tell my favorite St. Elmo story really quick. I walked in. This is like 3-4 years ago at the Combine, and we were eating with George Reister, so we got to go into the downstairs part. But we're walking through the thing, and you see all these different people while you're there during the Combine at St. Elmo's, because it's like the place that everybody goes. NFL people, TV people, like all kinds of people. I walked by it was like the time in my life where I walked by someone where I wanted to punch them in the face. It was Charlie Weiss. Charlie Weiss was sitting there. I'm walking through. Charlie Weiss
is all over.
He had just ruined Kansas's football program, put us back 10 years, my alma mater. And he's just sitting there with this smug look on his face. I was like, Charlie Weiss, you came in here anyway. I digress.
Yeah. I'm a Patriots fan. He delivered us a title as an offensive coordinator, so you will not do that on my show.
Good. Yeah, good for Charlie. Oregon and Penn State here. Oregon laying 3.5 points. Who do you like in this one tonight in Indianapolis, Gene?
Yeah, I don't think this one is really, for me, it's not a whole lot of analysis. I just asked one question, and you guys can help me. What major high leverage championship game has James Franklin ever won?
How many big games he ever won?
That's what I'm saying. Like,
big game.
Whenever there's a high leverage game, a game that's really going to matter, that's going to vault him from what we think is a good, solid, quality coach to one of the best coaches in the world. When has he ever won it? When have we ever seen wrinkles from his team that went, oh my God, he really caught them off guard with that? Never. I can't put any stock in that. Plus, they got a guy over there who's been playing quarterback in college for 117 years. He knows all the tricks in the book. Like, if it wasn't for the ridiculous years that Travis Hunter and Gene T's having, you would have to give you have to bring the Heisman to Oregon. So for me, I think Oregon is the clear bet here. I probably would say that we're probably going to win by a touchdown. So 3.5 for me. I'll take it, or I'll lay it, and I'll sit back and wait.
Froton, the prop market, we have a similar phenomenon to what we talked about earlier in this episode of a star receiver, clearly a team's wide receiver one, who happened to miss a game or two, was knocked out of one, so he had a partial game. So the sports books, their stupid algorithms, they are not accurately gauging it when they put together this person's receiving prop numbers for this game. We're talking in this one about Tez Johnson, who I know you like as well today. Tell people about the Tez Johnson play, and then if you have anything else in this game.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, I think everybody who's watching this knows exactly who Tez Johnson is. That's the beauty of it. And he got hurt. He dinged up his collarbone.
Knocked down the Michigan game. Yeah. And then came back last week, but not 100 ingratiating back in. Yeah.
They exactly give him a soft rollout, so to speak. He still catches 5 passes for 50 plus yards, and then they're just making sure that he's ready to go for the Big Ten championship, and he is. And he's still only listed at 5.5 receptions.
It's a bad line. He got over that line in 7 of 8 games to begin the season.
He didn't do it last week. We got to put him at 5.5.
Exactly. He gets knocked out really early in that Michigan game. So it doesn't matter. Like his stats, it doesn't matter. He didn't play the game. And then Washington, like Froton said, they're ingratiating him back. And then Oregon flogged him. They didn't need the pass in the set. Why are you you're compromised wide receiver one. You get him back from injury right before the Big Ten championship game. You're going to pound him with targets in the second half. You're running away from this one. In any normal game script, Tez Johnson flies over this number. 5.5.
Yeah, and we got a 5.5 too on Tyler Warren earlier in the week. I see that's up to 6 in a lot of places. If you
Tyler Elizabeth Warren, Froton.
Whoa, come on. Let's keep this a neutral show.
Tyler Warren, baby.
Now we're talking.
I like that.
That's right. Dick Tracy.
Going back to Dick Tracy. Yeah. By the way,
I can play this game all day. This is my favorite game.
Great work, Gene. Thanks for he's rescued us. But yeah, he's still listed at 5.5, even though he's used to the over. I think that Tez Johnson has earned the right to be respected. I got another sort of sprinkle-worthy one that I think is a little off the beaten path. Yep. Noah Whittington is he's down to 20.5 rushing yards. Man, I mean, he's the clear number 2. He gets about 33% of the work. Jordan James can only handle so many carries, and Oregon runs all the time. You know what I mean? So he's going to get at least, I don't know, I'd say 6-7 carries is around where he's at. And he's only at 20.5 rushing yards. Look, I understand Penn State's good. It's not a play against them, but this is still the Oregon Ducks that are undefeated, and they still are a team that runs the ball when they want. 9 carries, 67 last game, 13 for 77 against Maryland, 11 for 36 against Michigan, 56 against Illinois, 42 against, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, Whittington just slays this line, and he gets about 7 to 10 carries a game. If they follow that trend and injuries happen with Jordan James getting 26 or whatever he's going to get, give me Noah Whittington's 20.5 rushing yards over. I just think it's too low. I respect Penn State's defense, but Oregon's Oregon.
For me, I would lean towards Oregon on this side. I have Oregon minus 5.9 in this one. I haven't quite gotten there yet. We'll see by the time we get to this evening if I can get to the window on Oregon, but that's certainly the side that I would lean towards. And then in the prop market, over on Tez Johnson 5.5. That's one of the better props that we have today. Yeah, I mean, again, and this game matters. So you're going to have your normal thing, and he's going to get more catches than that. Next one and our last one of today and then this evening, ACC Championship in Charlotte today. This evening, SMU against Clemson. We got a live line on this one of SMU. Are we still at 2.5? Yeah, 2.5. 2.5 across the market. My line on this one is Clemson minus 0.3 points. I do lean Clemson. I'm not. This is another one I haven't gotten to the window quite yet, but I would lean towards Clemson on this one, and I have a couple player props that I'll talk about in a second here. But Gene, do you agree with me on that? Do you like Clemson in this one, or the upstart SMU Mustangs? You going with them?
Man, I like the way the Mustangs run the ball. I like the way that they've kind of pivoted and become more of a multifaceted offense. Over the past 5-6 games, really leaning in on Jennings, being a factor not only with his arms but with his legs as well. I think that this team just seems to be a little, I don't know, it seems to be one of those years where you're going to get these teams their first year in the conference having a magical run. And Clemson really just I wasn't very impressed with the game versus Virginia Tech. They barely got by Virginia Tech 24-14. I wasn't impressed with the Pitt game. Even the Citadel game, I was kind of like, that Citadel score 14 points. Like, what are we doing here? And then you go out there and you lay an egg versus South Carolina versus a rival. I don't know if maybe they didn't feel the same about it, but it just doesn't feel good for me when I'm looking at Clemson. I look at SMU and I think they have everything in the world to play for, because I think a lot of people believe that if they lose this game, they might drop all the way out the playoffs, which is crazy to think about.
Crazy.
But that's what people are saying. Oh, well, this has to be they're saying it has to be a good loss. Like Clemson can only beat them by a touchdown. And I'm like, it really shouldn't matter at this point. They've put together a body of work. I digress. On the playoff thing is an absolute mess.
Well, let's be clear. The committee's going to screw SMU if they lose this game. It's 100%. Yeah. Rhett Lashley already knows. He was on that web show, 2 nights ago, and he's like, he goes, if my roster just got COVID right now, we pull out of this game, we're in the college football playoff. It's dumb that we even have to play. He knows if they lose this game, the committee's going to screw them over and put in Alabama over SMU. It's going to happen. And
it's sad. It's sad when you think about it.
They need to change the rules somehow, because
they need
SMU's 3 spots ahead of Bama right now.
They need to revamp everything. They need to revamp everything about how they're going to go about it. But that's a conversation for another day. I think SMU has more to play for. It'll be more urgency. It'll be more urgency, more awareness of the moment. I think this Clemson Tigers team still just doesn't seem as cohesive as you would like to see him. I think Maffa's a little bit, banged up. So I don't know how effective he's going to be in this game as well. I'll take SMU. The 2.5. Yeah, I'll lay that.
Okay. Froton, G mentions Maffa there. Maffa, you're going up against a SMU defensive front here that is better, I think, than people think. So that's going to be interesting. Where I went with the props in this one, though, was fading the other guy in the backfield there at Clemson. I went under on Cade Klubnik at 252.5 passing yards because of the way that the SMU pass defense matches up against Clemson's passing offense, where SMU is really good at defending the short stuff, and they have a really high efficiency numbers for their pass defense. SMU's pass defense, number 9 success rate, number 20 in EPA per dropback, so sort of the overall metric. But SMU, you can get them for deep shots, number 75 passing marginal explosiveness on defense. Clemson's passing offense, it's essentially the same numbers, but just flip to the other side. Clemson's passing offense, 35th success rate. They're number 4 interception percentage, so they take care of the ball too. 27th in EPA per dropback, but only 85th in marginal explosiveness for Clemson. So Clemson, their passing offense does not do the one thing that SMU reliably chokes away yards to, which is the explosive passes. Because of that, I find it this is going to be a hard road for Cade Klubnik trying to get over this number with the short stuff that SMU's pass defense is really good at defending. That was mine. What do you got in this game, Froton?
Yeah, and I Gene and I are kind of on the same page here in a lot of ways. I like this SMU team. Keep in mind the one loss that they had,
BYU, baby.
BYU, a 3-point game, a slog.
Looks a lot better in hindsight. Yeah,
18-15 field goal fest.
Classic.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Who started that? It was the 3rd game of the year for SMU. Who started that game at quarterback? Oh, it wasn't Kevin Jennings.
The Stone Age, baby.
We're going back to the Stone Age.
Yeah.
All right. Preston Stone started that game. All right. That's how far back we have to go. They lost one game. It was the BYU. It was by 3 points, and they didn't even have Jennings as the starter. Yet he's still coming off the bench like a 6th man to do that. I mean, all these factors, like you say, just make it would disgust me to see them taken out. But I know they will be, and it would be an injustice, and I feel for the SMU faithful. That being said, prop that I like, again, Gene mentioned it, Phil Maffa. I went back and I watched his last couple of games, not even counting Citadel. He barely even touched the field against Citadel because he's been banged up, and he looks it. That he doesn't simply have the explosiveness. I've been going through a lot of the running back film for prep for NFL draft stuff and just, making sure that I go back and see everybody. And I watched Omarion Hampton and then Phil Maffa in succession this week. And it was not very favorable to Mr. Maffa, especially over the last couple of weeks. Just looks slower, more plotting against an SMU rush defense they're going up against that. I mean, they've only allowed over, 100. Twice that they've allowed over 103 yards in ACC play. And one was to BC, which, that's the Bill O'Brien BC team. You know what they like to do. And the other was against Louisville, who is probably the best team they play on the schedule. I just have a hard time seeing a one-dimensional plotter like Maffa being able to rack up 82.5 rushing yards against this stout SMU defense that's identity is the trenches. I think you can have better, they're going to try to go through the air with their high-volume passing game and low explosiveness. So, I think if you want to take a look at maybe your reception stuff on Williams, I think you see a lot of Antonio Williams, but I am under on Phil Maffa's rushing yardage.
Love it. Boys, we'll get into our best bets here in a second, but Gene, just really quickly, because we're already over on time, go through your FCS plays quick that you have on the board for today in the playoffs.
Well, I would tell you that I'm really paying attention. I think my FCS player of the week, look at the SWAC championship game, Jackson State. They've already played a game. Jackson State beat them pretty handily in, and I think that this Jackson State team just knows who they are a little bit more than what Southern does. I expect a repeat performance. Jackson State -14. That's my FCS player of the week. We also have some really intriguing games. All the Dakotas are lined up. North Dakota State right now -21. I think that's an interesting play because a lot of the teams that they're playing, they just don't have the level of competition that the Dakotas have. Minus 21 for North Dakota State, minus 23.5, I believe, for South Dakota State. I think both of those games have a chance to be blowouts. And so like there's some interesting games out there. You might want to go and check them out. Look at the bet tracker. I've got more games teed up on the bet tracker. If you're looking at what you want to go for the FCS, I've got one more, but I'm probably going to save it for my coach's corner since we got the stimulus package last night, which we really do appreciate from Army. Too bad that game was on before we could have played.
So
we would have given you Army all over the place yesterday.
Yeah, that was a money shower between Udo, between the multiple rushing touchdowns every single game from Daly, between the doubt for Army. The public doubted your Army again. Gene.
I don't know. I don't know why. That money line Army was money.
Indeed.
Gene's trying to help. He's trying.
Gene, we'll go right to your coach's corner now. Begin our plays of the day. We'll round robin these, and then we'll let the good folks go. But what's your favorite play on the board today, Gene?
Yeah, for me, I look at this FCS game because most of the games that we've covered for the FBS already. But Montana State at home minus 17.5 versus UT Martin. Like, here's the thing that happens when we get to the playoffs. There are these teams in the FCS that have good seasons, not great seasons, good seasons, but because they're in a conference that's maybe not to the level of the Missouri Valley Football Conference, they end up in the playoffs, and then everybody's like, oh, we got to show them more love. We got to show them more love. And then they get to playing against the elite of the elite, and they get steamrolled. UT Martin will not be able to stop the run because they've been able to stop rushing attacks that are nowhere near the level of a Montana State, of a North Dakota State, of a South Dakota State, of a South Dakota, not even maybe of an Idaho. And so when you start to go up against these elite level FCS teams, which make no mistake about it, Montana State is the class of the FCS as it stands right now. That doesn't mean they're going to win a championship, but it means that they have a very good chance of being there. Touchdown Tommy Mellott will be on full display in Montana at home. You're telling me Tennessee has to travel to play in Montana? Yo, fire up that Bozeman. It's going to be a beautiful thing out there. Montana State minus 17.5. That is my coach's corner pick. You can put it on the board.
Yes. Montana State, they've been doing really well with that Dutton NIL money, haven't they, Gene?
Yeah. They've been putting it to use for sure.
Froton, your torpedo play of the day today.
That's right. And we go with a torpedo play, and we are seeking and destroying. This is my old hockey, deck hockey team from back in the day at Square One in Saugus. Obviously, I was a physical stay-at-home defender, otherwise known as a goon. Everybody knows I'm a basketball player, but when it was time, I loved going out and fighting. That was my job. It was great. That being said, we got a fight on our hands for our final of this. I can't believe we're 15 weeks in the final best bet of the year. I've got two. I'm going to slide Phil Maffa, that under, in as one of my co-best bets. I want to make sure we both get that in, is at the end. So I want to get him in. And then also we want to go right to my boy, Carson Beck. We talked about him.
Your boy.
The Snapchat, the suave Carson Beck, the debonair Carson Beck.
Yeah, Fabio.
Absolutely. The hair, everything. That being said, we have him again at 33.5 pass attempts. I just simply can't believe they keep doing this, right?
Why do they?
43 last game against Georgia Tech. We wipe out UMass, right? But 40 against Tennessee, 40 against Florida, 41 Texas in their last game. He only threw for 175 yards last game. They were up 30-15 against Texas. He threw for 30. He threw 41 passes. Right? In a game where they're up 2 touchdowns? No. I think we get a correction here. We're not going to have another 3 fumbles out of Texas like we did. That is not happening like we did last game. You see a correction, much more competitive game, which means this Georgia team throws, we talked earlier, 122nd in neutral, standard pass script, 117. Give me Carson Beck's over pass attempts.
I'm going with our boy McDonald, K. McDonald from Miami of Ohio, the over 43.5 receiving yards, is where I got it, or wherever it is now. I'm happy to go over on that. Mentioned earlier that McDonald has played 8.5 games as opposed to the 12 for the other two starting receivers at Miami of Ohio, and yet has nearly as many targets as both those guys. McDonald, clearly the wide receiver one on that team. He is back, and he is fully healthy. We saw that last week. So I think he's going to go well over that. And Froton and I are both climbing the ladder on that one. So we like that one. By the way, Ohio's pass defense, I didn't mention this before, 73rd success rate, 80th in completion percentage allowed, 81st in adjusted completion percentage. And again, they struggle more when the quarterback can get it out quick, neutralize Ohio's what is a good pass rush. And Miami of Ohio fits the bill. Gabbert, 17th fastest release time in the FBS. Boys, we made it. We are a little over time. I hope people will forgive us for that. Yeah, Dean?
I was about to say Abu Sama's already up 35.5 now. It was just 32.5 on Prize Picks. Now he was up to 35.5. That tells you they're listening. Get him in right now.
He's finally starting to go up. Yeah, we've had some jumps here during the show.
So baby, Gino, who's the guy who says take that ladder all the way up? Who's that?
All the way up.
All the way up. We're taking that
Fat
ladder.
Joe. We're Fat Joeing it, baby.
We're Fat Joeing it today, baby.
All the way up.
And hopefully that'll be our bankroll today. Appreciate everyone who came and watched. We will be back next week for our first special bowl episode, and most of the Saturdays this same time slot on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel. So check us out there. But we're out of time. For my co-host Eric Froton of NBC Sports, the coach Gene Clemons, I am Thor Nystrom. Let's go cash some tickets.